Hello and happy sunny Monday. I am Jer Stays and welcome to your Daily Detroit for February 26th, 2024. Today's conversation is about Detroit's first 3D printed house. There's a need for more housing in Metro Detroit, but rising costs and labor issues are meaning fewer homes are getting built. The city itself has tens of thousands of small lots that were homes, and well, they could be again. This project that I visited by Citizen Robotics is a pilot and for sale if you want to buy it over on Sheridan Street in Detroit's Island View neighborhood. So what are the details on this one? What did they learn and what's next? My conversation today is with Fernando Bales of Citizen Robotics. Then I'll send you out the door with a couple things to know around town. But first, thanks to Nest in Detroit's beautiful Midtown. Fellow Detroit enthusiasts need to know about Nest. It is one of Detroit's best destinations for all your home goods, plants, and gift needs in any season. The sibling store to City Bird, Nest has your gift list covered. Nest is a treasure trove of beautiful home goods, decor, candles, plant items, kits, puzzles, and so much more. Whatever your taste or budget, Nest has something for you. I've been shopping there for years, and I'm glad they are supporting your daily Detroit. Nest is, well, nestled in Detroit's vibrant Midtown neighborhood, adding to the charm of your shopping experience. If you're looking for that perfect gift or want to elevate your living space, visit Nest or their sister store, City Bird, on West Canfield between Cass and 2nd today, or check them out at citybird.detroit.com. So first off, we were on Sheridan Street on Detroit's east side. Fernando, thank you for giving me a little bit of, frankly, letting me in the door on this place. There's a hive of activity. We are recording this on the day that you're doing your ribbon cutting. Yep. So 3D printed house immediately got my attention. Who is doing this? What's kind of the idea behind this project?
Citizen Robotics is a nonprofit, 501c3. We're located over in Southwest Detroit, right behind the train station. We've been at this for about 4 years, trying to bring automation to residential home building. About 4 years ago, our founders, Tom and Evelyn Woodman, father-daughter duo, noticed that there's a lack of automation in home construction. And that's a possible solution to helping the housing crisis, specifically here in Detroit. As we talked about, that sort of missing middle, urban infill type of construction that Detroit has about 80,000 lots in the land bank that are sitting empty. And we also need more housing here in the city. So we thought, let's take a stab at trying to bring some of that housing to the city through this new construction method.
And one of the challenges is that building new construction is very expensive. And also, it's difficult to build single houses, right? You're a builder, so you have a bit of background on this. Fill people in for those who don't know, who are like, well, why can't I just put a house in the middle?
There's a lot that goes into building a house. Zoning requirements, right? The type of housing you can put up in certain neighborhoods. Then the lots that you're dealing with, that you have to work with a designer to understand, your setbacks and understand how the design is influenced by the lot that you want to build on. And then the rest of the construction world has to meet up with your plans. So cost of material continues to go up. Finding labor is difficult in any sort of city that you're trying to build in. And a lot of young folks are less and less interested in the trades. And then we have a lot of folks retiring out of the trades as well. And so we're facing a crisis. We see it loud and clear that in order to build to the demand that is out there for new residential homes, we have to begin to automate.
So you look at this place and there's a few things where you can tell it's 3D printed. I saw a statement wall with a really cool corner and the planters, but the rest of this, it strikes me right away that this is a very modern feeling home. And I don't necessarily mean by design, but like amenities and everything else. How important was it you to marry the two of the futurism of printing? And there's some nods to it that I like, but it's not like this entire thing is like stripes.
Yeah, exactly. We were very conscious of that the first 3D printed home in Detroit, we wanted to make sure that it didn't look like a foreign object had just landed here. We see plenty of that all over the world, which is great, but we don't want to scare people off. That it's not so much about the tech that we're using, but about the process that we're trying to innovate on to build more and better homes in the city. There are some nods to the 3D construction part of it. Just the exterior walls are 3D printed, and then there's 2 curved walls here in the interior that are 3D printed. But we want to make sure that the rest of the house was usable. That functionality obviously is very important. We married some of the tech with some conventional construction methods. We have conventional framing for the ceiling and the attic space for some of our interior walls. But we also want to make sure that this house was visitable so that somebody who is maybe less able is able to enter the home without being impeded. We have a zero threshold shower, ADA bathroom, and a nice wide open hallway to the bedrooms.
I noticed those right away. I have a family member that has some of those needs. And right away, I was like, this is a place that they could move into. But also, I like the arm room and all that other kind of stuff. It's pretty nice. You have experience in building, done a lot of things. Why go with a startup out of Detroit with, and we'll get into a little bit of the process later, but what drew you to do this? Because this is unconventional.
Yeah, as a builder, I was running my own design build practice for about 10 years prior to joining Citizen Robotics. And I immediately saw sort of the ceiling that I was going to reach, which was, working with more higher end clients and building more one-off custom homes. That's great. There's definitely a market for that, but I was much more interested in solving a problem, right? The problem of how do we build for the middle class? How do we build for normal folks who just want a small, modest home? And so I saw it as a challenge, and I think what Citizen Robotics is trying to do and what we are doing is meeting that challenge head on. And it's, again, not just about tech, but I think there's a larger conversation at play in terms of some of the social issues that we have around housing and who and what gets to decide what gets built.
And it feels natural because Metro Detroit, if people don't know, we are a center of the world when it comes to robotics. How does that impact some of the work done here?
So our founder, Tom Woodman, comes from a systems architecture background, working with assembly lines. He firsthand was able to see the transformation that automation can bring to an entire industry. And why isn't that happening in home building? That was really the impetus for taking this venture on. Automation is key, we think, to really transforming any industry. That the technology is out there. 3D printing on a desktop size printer has been around for about 30 years. It's influenced many different industries. The hearing aid industry is quite fascinating to learn about in terms of how 3D printing transformed that. But we're still swinging hammers, building houses, with one stick at a time out on a job site. We just have to ask ourselves, why are we still doing things this way when we know and we have the tool sets available to us to build differently?
When it comes to the benefits of 3D printing, what are those benefits? Costs, insulation, things like that? Because, when you're doing something new, people are going to ask, well, why should I do it this way?
Right. To 3D print the perimeter of this house, it took 2 people and a robot. It was myself and our lab assistant, Lucas. It took us 5 days to 3D print the walls. And so efficiency in labor is definitely one of them. We also used a lot less material. The material was pretty exact to what we needed to print. We had very little waste, that comes out of the robot. When you do have a little waste when you start the print and when you end the print, but we were able to be quite efficient with the use of material. The wall system itself is super efficient in terms of, with just 2 materials, the 3D concrete print and the foam that we filled it with, we're able to have a very airtight structure as opposed to conventional construction where you would have up to sometimes a dozen materials that creates your wall system. The cost right now, we're about on par with conventional framing, which we think is pretty good for just doing one and being our first one. The cementitious mortar that we print with right now is much more expensive than we'd like it to be.
Semi what? So what is that?
Cementitious mortar.
Okay.
You can imagine it like the mortar that puts bricks together, right? It's technically not a concrete because we don't have large aggregate in the mix. It's really just cement, sand, water, and some secret sauce that we don't know the recipe to, but it's what's commercially available right now. So we wanted to make sure we're using a material that has been tested and is safe to build with so that we could have confidence in the structure that we're putting up.
So the idea being, if you do more of these or you're going to roll out a bunch of them, your costs come down.
Absolutely. Like with anything with volume, there's a ton of cost benefits. But obviously this first prototype, we wanted to learn what we had to learn, and I think we were able to take the lessons learned and we'll be applying those to our next projects and hopefully being much more cost competitive, but continuing to innovate and to up the quality of the homes that we're putting up.
What's the biggest lesson that you learned doing this?
Oh man, I don't know that I could just pick one, but I think the biggest lesson that I learned is that I think there's actually hope out there to solve this problem. That regardless of all the small lessons we learned, which there were hundreds of them, I think that people want to see this, right? People want a solution that allows more folks to own homes and to live in a house that is safe and that is of quality. I think we just have to keep pushing forward. I think that for me is the biggest lesson learned, is that, yeah, we're doing something difficult, but it's worth it.
So I saw a for sale, a realtor sign out here. This isn't just a demonstration. People can buy this, right?
Yes, it is for sale. The sell price is $224,500. And that's capped by MSHDA. We did have partial funding from the state to test this out. They capped the sell price. But yeah, if somebody's interested in this, what I like to think of a pretty state-of-the-art home, certainly reach out.
Awesome. Fernando, I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Here are a couple things to know today. Alfred Brushford Park in Detroit will be closed for several months for soil cleanup and tree removal. The 34-acre park was already due for $9.5 million in upgrades funded by the Strategic Neighborhood Fund and the American Rescue Plan Act. Environmental testing for the demolition of the old Lenox Community Center showed soil contamination, including lead and arsenic. The city's Building, Safety, Engineering, and Environmental Department says the entire park requires remediation, plus adding 2 feet of clean soil and the removal of more than 250 trees, many being over 100 years old. The addition of the soil would have killed the roots anyway, and a number of them are in poor health. The park, now closed to the public, will have the older trees removed, followed by the planting of nearly 600 native trees. Heavy trucks will also be brought to the area, with an average of 20 to 30 trucks per day over the 7-month project. That's going to cause some disturbance for sure in the Jefferson-Chalmers neighborhood. Personally, I used to walk my dog quite a bit over in that area. I'm looking forward to the changes, but I also hope that this goes well. And thanks to listener Rob, who gave us the tip-off that work is underway at the building that housed the former Chung's restaurant in Detroit's Cass Corridor. I went down there myself this morning, and she is gutted down to the floors, beams, and walls, something that was needed from my previous visit. She had undergone quite a bit of damage. I will be interested to see what goes into this space. When I was younger, I actually got to go to the legendary Chinese restaurant before it closed. I will share some videos of the work on our Daily Detroit Minute on Instagram later on. All right, that is it for today. Thanks so much for listening to your Daily Detroit. Thanks to Cheyenne Nocerini for editing this episode. And thanks to you for listening, as well as thanks to our members on Patreon, patreon.com/dailydetroit. Membership helps bridge the gap so that we can continue to do all local coverage. With that, I am Jer Stays. Remember that you are somebody, and we'll talk tomorrow.